Hello, my name is Kimberly Alcantara. Over the past 50 years, the League of Women Voters of Wilmette has worked with 8th grade students throughout Wilmette to provide the opportunity to learn about the workings of local government. In order to understand firsthand how our local governmental units function, students have worked closely with representatives from the boards of the village, the library, the park district, and our two K-8 school boards, District 37 and District 39. Today, students from District 37's Marie Murphy School will conduct a mock meeting of the District 37 Board of Education. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Wilmette, I would like to thank all of the District 37 staff, especially Nancy Stewart, as well as the members of the District 37 Board and Superintendent Josh for making the League's Student and Government Leaders Program possible. Thank you.
This meeting of the Avoca 37 Board of Education is called to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Grossman?
Present.
Ms. I?
Present.
Ms. Vandergrift?
Present.
President Shaw?
Present.
Ms. Rajwani? Present. Ms. Patel? Ms. Schnitzlein?
Present.
We have a quorum. The first item on our agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes of the February 7th, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second. Any corrections or discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes financial statements for January and February 2019, February 2019 personnel report, January 2019 enrollment report. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The consent agenda is approved. The board will now hear public comments. If you would like to make a comment, please step to the podium.
Thank you. My name is Allison Stein. I live at 100 Virginia Lane, near the school. I understand you have on your agenda for today options for the Avoca Center land. As a nearby resident and a neighbor, I want to express my concern about entering into a long-term lease, because that's going to give us less control in the long run. So I'd really like to hear some of your thoughts on the pros and cons, because I'm very concerned about this.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, my name is Ann Treadway. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make comments. My address is 935 Elmwood in Wilmette. I understand that you have the Avoca Center land choices up for review at this meeting. I wanted to voice my support for a green space to include some native plants. As you may know, there are a lot of migratory birds and bees that rely on native plants, and most cultivated landscapes include a lot of ornamental plantings that do not support birds and bees and other animals. And I support very much that the migratory birds need the food and shelter that native plantings would offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have just one action item on our agenda this evening, and that is deciding the future of the Avoca Center property, now that we have decided to raise the building. Unfortunately, Superintendent Bocaius is out sick this evening, but Business Manager Lee will give the report they prepared on options we are considering tonight. Ms. Lee?
Future use of the Avoca Center property, we have 3 options provided tonight, all of which serve the purpose of determining the use of the land. So option number 1 is individually creating green space, as one of our guests mentioned. So the first objective and a set of possibilities that come with it is to create an open green space, which is formally defined as an open area of vegetation maintained for recreational or aesthetic purpose. And basically, this could either be defined as an open field or park. This park will be for public use, and it is open for free temporary recreational use. And, because there is a lot of flexibility about how to execute this, the exact logistics will be determined. The budget is also to be decided by the board if we are to go with this method, and there is, once again, no established design. This possibility has the least environmental footprint also. So expenses. We already have the complete demolition of the building, which is around $400,000 to $500,000. And so, including other institutions like park benches, cement, maybe, once again, native plants is also, to be determined and to be added to that cost we already have as a baseline. And here are some hypothetical artist renderings that we could work off of, near a school environment, and unlike the urban setting that we have presented here. So some advantages of this green space, and so it's very fiscal, which means that the field space is left open for possible future use, and this means that opportunities could arise from it. And it's relatively easy to maintain as well, and there's no standards or expectations. For example, North Shore Country Day School that will want us to uphold this to a certain condition. And as I mentioned previously, it is very environmentally friendly, and there has been positive correlation among mental health and exposure to the environment. That going outside can basically, make you happier. And then it could also be used by residents in the community as a whole, including MM's students, and maybe we could have a nature studies class based off of this. And also, finally, this green space should make the neighborhood aesthetically pleasing, adding to the value that we have in Wilmette. Once again, some of the disadvantages, and it is also fiscal. That could go both ways. So because it is free to the public, we gain no revenue from that. And also maintaining the green space has a cost as well, and it's not compensated for what we have. And we are spending money to make money. Also, for public use, that poses a possible safety risk because unauthorized visitors are within close proximity to Marie Murphy during school hours, and then this could bring the possibility of endangering lives, but we have no notice of this. So this would basically pose a security threat to students at school. Our second option is to lease an open field independently, not to North Shore Country Day School. We don't have to enter in an agreement with well, but this is our second out of 3 options. So this is defined as creating an open field, more so similar to that of a park, for the purpose of leasing. So like previously, this is an open field of park, and it is also like the renderings I showed previously of the green space. It is open for free temporary recreational use, and also because of the wide range of uses that we have, the exact logistics like price and what we should use it for should be determined, and therefore as well the budget would be decided too. There's no established design, and expenses of creating these spaces will apply as well to the costs that we already have for raising the building. So an advantages is that we receive profit for this, and we will do so. And opportunities may arise from entering agreements with other groups of people, and there's more freedom with this agreement than the one with North Shore Country Day School, because we are in more control of this, and maintenance of the fields will be supported by the revenue that comes back. There is no safety risk, and there is a demanded notice for someone to rent, so there would be no danger for the students at school. And so in summary, this option would be a green space without the disadvantages of safety and profit. So the cost of maintenance as a part of disadvantages may be higher, and it also must be held to higher standards to lure potential tenants and to keep the tenants that we have around. Resources must be devoted to assure that everything remains in order, like dealing with tenants, handling expenses, and customizing the green space to the needs. And also, there is no guaranteed use of land by the prospective tenants, and then what price will they be willing to rent at, and at what price. And the cost of creation would likely include costs in addition to tearing down the building, which we have no control over, and we have very little predictions to account for this. So finally, option number 3 is a lease agreement with North Shore Country Day School. So for the costs, we have the demolition of the building of the Avoca Center, which would be $400,000 to $500,000. Making that into a usable turf would be around $34,848, and while maintaining that space would be $8,000. And these are some hypothetical renderings of the green space that we could be using. And these images have not been specifically chosen by either district. They have not been approved. They're just examples that would be possible, and that's some things that we could use. So obligations. The agreement would become contractually binding for 16 years. We would have to stay in that agreement for that long. And North Shore Country Day School would agree to prepay Avoca $400,000 for future use of the athletic fields. And then there would be $200,000 paid upon the execution of the facility use agreement, FUA. And there would also be 5 additional payments between January and May of 2019. Each payment will be $40,000 to use the fields. And the continuance of the term should be upheld by a payment of $25,000. So, obligations of Avoca. So, Avoca will agree that all of payments shall be held in a separate account to be used solely for the purpose of paying for the demolition of the Avoca Center and further construction of athletic fields. And they will also be responsible for complete demolition of the Avoca Center and the construction of the fields, as mentioned above. And Avoca will maintain insurance as named by North Shore Country Day School to indemnify the school in light of possible damage to the land, because they are both in the agreement. And additionally, Avoca will hold North Shore Country Day School innocent from any claims arising from this subject that may be of controversy. Conditions in which the lease agreement will be made on. So, as an occurrence as of August of 2019, North Shore Country Day School should have exclusive use of athletic fields for a period of 2 hours 15 minutes each weekday during the spring and fall seasons, both in total being 11 weeks respectively in length. If the fields aren't available for use during the fall, then an additional season will be allotted for them to use. So during the period of the FUA, the North Shore Country School may rent additional hours not outlined previously for the flat rate of $100 an hour. And for access to the entirety of the field, an additional $100 an hour will be required, and such will only come to fruition that the North Shore Country Day School make such intentions and payment be provided 8 weeks prior to the beginning of the rental season. And as of August 1st, 2020, a rent escalation fee will be paid based upon the consumer price index in application to supplementary rental hours, and the escalation will be no less than 2%, no more than 5%. To continue on with this, North Shore Country Day School may rent additional time through the year subject to the availability of the terms and other Avoca rental agreements and to Avoca's own usage. So they would have to work out an agreement between those two and conflicting needs. And 8 weeks before a student starts, North Shore Country Day School will specify field configuration, conditions, and such for that season to best accommodate the sports that the school would offer at that time. More expectations and liabilities. North Shore Country Day School can park at Murray Murphy's parking lot for free, and Avoca is responsible for all upkeep and maintenance of the fields, so maintain fields in good condition. And they may rent fields to other users at any rate other than North Shore Country Day School, given the fact that they are not using the fields. And so these are matters subject to Avoca board approval. If North Shore Country Day School pays for any other field improvements, they have the right to rent these improved fields at the currently hour rental rate described in the lease agreement, with offsets for North Shore Country Day's upfront payments similar to this initial FUA.
The chair will invite the members of this board to now ask questions on this presentation. Ms. Rajwani.
So just to help me understand, the North Shore Country Day School can also rent out some of this property?
Yes, as long as no, I was mistaken. I said Avoca may rent these fields to other uses at any rate, given that North Shore Country Day School isn't using it. Sorry.
Ms. Grossman?
Miss Lee, would North Shore Country Day be help us create the fields like originally?
Part of the lease agreement, I feel like their payments to us would give us the revenue to design the fields and construct them.
You mentioned that North Shore County Day has the ability to use our parking spot at Murray Murphy. Does that apply to the Avoca West School?
I wouldn't think so, no.
Ms. Vandergrift?
How long will it take to pay back the money that we used to spend on the demolition of the building to create land space for the...
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
How long will it take to pay back the money that we used to spend on the demolition of the building to create the space for the fields?
I'm not sure, but maybe we could estimate at least several years.
Ms. I?
Roughly how long do you think it would take to make a field or a park?
Maybe at least 6 months to a year.
Ms. Rajani?
You mentioned with the lease that the disadvantages, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned there's a factor of unpredictability. Did you mention that? Or
For which option?
the lease option, not specific to the North Shore Country Day School?
Well, there could be an unpredictability for what they use it for, but the agreement does allot out the fact how they will use it and when they will use it and at what they will pay for.
Thank you.
For the green space option, what preventative measures could be taken to ensure that our students are safe?
We could have visitors sign in. There could be like a registration desk for you to enter this sort of space, but that would require more time and resources and more time to think it out through properly.
And just to be clear, there is no way to regulate who comes into the green space area, correct?
Not as of right now, no.
Ms. Vandergrift?
With the rental of the fields, that still seems like someone could come in and safety would no longer be. The school would no longer be safe. How would you combat that?
If you're renting out the fields at North Shore Country Day School or anyone, the time which they use that is already stated in the agreement, and so they will.
I'm
know
not
when
talking about North Shore Country Day. I'm talking about if we're renting the fields on our own.
I feel like we would also have to set up a time with the person that we are agreeing with in which deciding when they will come over and use the fields for their use.
Miss I, did you have a question?
Yep. For the green space, where would we get the money to maintain it?
I'm not sure, but maybe we could use fundraisers. We could also there would be probably a small budget, planned out for the usage and costs as well. But since it is only a green space and the costs could vary tremendously, I'm not sure.
I have a question. For the green space, is there a benefit to us for that, and what exactly would it be?
There may not be revenues based. There may not be benefits based off of revenue, but there may be mental health benefits, as I mentioned before, and there for an opportunity for kids to relax and enjoy the green space, and also the plants that we could plant could also attract pollinators to the area, and since they are on the decline.
Miss I?
You said that for the leasing with the Country Day School, we had to stay in the agreement for 16 years?
Yes.
And there's no way out?
A way out, I'm not sure of, but yes, 16 years is the time decided.
So I was wondering how frequently, if we entered into the agreement with North Shore Country Day, how frequently would we have to keep the fields? How frequently would we have to?
Well, maybe it depends on the intensity of usage, but I would maybe project at least every 2 weeks. We would have to do a check through.
Just to be clear, there with the fields with North Shore Country Day, there wouldn't be any extra security measures put in than there are now currently, correct? With the fields that we already have at our school.
I mean, it's not anyone we don't know that is using the fields when we are entering into that lease agreement. It's the school itself. So I mean, there could be potential safety problems, but they wouldn't, would be very.
So it's pretty much just like how we have now. So like no public people like usually enter the fields during the school day currently. So it wouldn't change when the fields are added.
I believe so. Yeah.
You mentioned that we have to give up some of our time for the fields if we enter the North Shore County Day School to them. Do we have any basis of like when that would be? Because I don't want the students to have their own time in PE trespassed for that.
It's I don't think we're using part. So there's like a setup of athletic fields, and the area that the Avoca Center will be is not currently part of with the one where Marie Murphy students use. So I think that they would have their own separate space to use, and we would have our own separate space, and they would also be using it. Yeah.
Miss I?
For the country day, we would, if they rented it out to someone, we would have no control over who they rented it out to, correct?
I'm not sure about that.
I move that the board eliminate the option of turning the land into green space.
I second.
Is there any discussion? Anyone would like to discuss? Miss I, how about you share your opinion on this?
I think that it would be a lot to maintain, and we wouldn't be profiting, so it would be hard to upkeep it.
Ms. Grossman?
The safety issues that could arise from having a green space that would be completely open to the public could result in more harm than good coming to our school, as well as the decrease in revenue compared to the other options.
Ms. Schnitzler?
I too worry about our ability to keep safety a top priority, and I feel that the profit, while it does keep us out of debt at the beginning, will drop us tremendously over time compared to the others.
I agree with everything that has been said previously.
Ms. Rajani, would you like to add anything?
Everything's been said.
All right. Will the secretary call the roll for the vote?
Miss Grossman?
I vote to eliminate green space.
Miss I?
I agree.
Miss Vandergrift?
I vote to eliminate the green space option.
President Shaw?
I vote to eliminate.
Miss Rajwani? Aye. Miss Patel is absent. Miss Schnitzline?
Aye.
The motion carries. Yes, the motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion on plans for the future of the Avoca Center property. A new motion, too.
I move to develop and rent the fields on our own.
I second the motion.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Grossman?
I believe that if we choose to make the fields on our own, we will not have the financial benefit of another school already invested in agreement with us. Because if we were to make the fields on our own, we would still have to embark on a financial, to find someone else who would also rent the fields out anyways. So with the North Shore Country Day option, we are already able to have someone to rent the fields. With this option, we have uncertainty as to who will or if anyone will rent the fields.
Ms. Vandergrift?
With this option, we can still use the field for our sports and PE without being held to a contract. And we can still rent the field to other schools, but it's more on our terms rather than on NSCD's terms.
Ms. I?
I think that we should not do it on our own because it would be the same as doing it with the country day school, but we would have to pay all the expenses on our own.
Ms. Schlinkman?
I do worry with going in with North Shore Country Day, we lose a lot of our time on our own. So I feel that if we go into it on our own, we have the option of doing whenever we want, whatever we want. And if we want to keep the fields to ourselves on a particular day, we have that option. It's not like we are tied to a bond.
Ms. Rajani?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that we would still be able to use the fields of how our PE classes require it. And also the matter of, even though it's sort of a loan, but we still get a significant sum to aid in demolishing the building and
Ms. Grossman?
As Mr. Rajwani said, if we go in by ourselves, there is no way to ensure that we will that we won't be able to use our fields again. We will still be able to use our fields if we go in with North Shore Country Day. As well, if we do decide not to go in by ourselves, there is no way to ensure that we will find someone to rent the fields within a short period of time. It could be months before we find someone who would like to help us, and that would place all the financial burden on ourselves.
Ms. Vandergrift?
Everything has been said.
Okay. Ms. Schlinkman, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I feel that while we do have the option of going in, and we are given a lot of money comparatively, I do risk about our time, especially for our students, for us to enter in a 16-year agreement. We don't know what's going to be like along the road, and we won't know how things will progress, and if we want a whole day being used in a field or a whole week, for our students, we can't have that done because we will still be losing time to North Shore County Day, and we don't know when that will be.
Ms. Grossman?
This is for the business manager. Will the fields be able to be used during the school day or only after school?
I'm assuming after school, but I could be wrong.
If the fields are only to be used after school, then couldn't our students still solely have the use during their school day? I'm not sure if our PE classes would be interrupted then, if nobody else is using it besides us during the actual school day.
Ms. I?
I think that we have our fields, and that if we had added another green space, we wouldn't necessarily need it throughout the day.
Ms. Rajwani?
If we enter into this agreement with North Shore Country Day, it's technically still our property, I believe, correct? So we can use it however we please. And then we also have another area, which is actually our current gym fields, I guess you could call them, that we use to do the mile, play soccer outside, whatnot. That space is already there, and that space is only our own. So I don't think there's a concern of PE time or a conflict with the students' schedules.
Ms. Vandergrift?
One of the problems I see with entering into a 16-year lease agreement is, I believe Ms. Lee mentioned something about there being a only lower than a 2%. There had to be a 2% inflation, but no higher than a 5% inflation. And while it does provide some security on the fact that it can't go down, if I'm understanding correctly, but if property values skyrocket, we don't get any benefit in leasing that out, as opposed to if we leased it out on our own and property values skyrocketed, we could lease it for more.
Ms. I.
No comment.
Ms. Rajwani?
If property values skyrocketed, then I believe property tax would also go up, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And because approximately 35% of our income of sorts comes from property tax, if the property tax went up, then so would our income of sorts, so we'd be covered in that perspective.
Ms. Vandergrift?
To Ms. Rajwani's point, although our tax value would go up, we wouldn't be benefiting as much as we could be from leasing out the fields, and our school's already in debt. We should try to reap as much revenue as we can to help pay that off.
Ms. Grossman?
And the fields couldn't necessarily just be used for sport activity, as we said before. It could also be used for like time for students to go out and enjoy nature. Not necessarily just with, you don't necessarily need an entire green space for that. There are already like some trees in the area, and as well, if you are worried about like not there being any space which is green, this area could also be used as sort of a green space. And is there any other schools or things that are already interested in it if we were to lease on our own? Are there any other schools that are interested in leasing if we were to?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Ms. I.
Even if we do rent the fields and the parks to other outside schools or people, then we couldn't, how should I put this? If Country Day School, if they have the power to rent it out to other people, and if we aren't allowed to change it or have a vote in who they lease it out to, would it necessarily be beneficial to us and our students?
Would anyone like to answer this question? Ms. Rajwani? Ms. I, would you please repeat that question that you just asked?
Would it be beneficial to allow the Country Day School to rent it out to other people that we have no control over who they rent to?
Ms.
I
Rajwani?
believe I understand what you're asking. Are you asking if North Shore Country Day can rent out the fields?
Okay, no.
Does it make sense for them to be able to do that?
No, but they can't. Can they?
Well, a comment that I was going to mention is that if North Shore Country Day modifies the fields, if we enter into that lease agreement with them, then they'll only be able to rent out the fields that the part of the fields that they modify, not the area that we've entered in the agreements with.
Okay. So that's the question. So they can rent it out to people, and let's say they rent it out to someone we don't necessarily like or isn't good for our school or something like that, and we have no control over it. Wouldn't it be better to have our own field than to take that chance?
Ms. Rajwani?
Another question for the business manager. Does the North Shore Country Day School have to check in with us before they make any modifications? Because if we can restrict that or do it ourselves, then ultimately we would have that control.
It probably depends on the modifications they make, but I'm assuming there has to be agreement that is made to make sure that these modifications don't affect the plan in any way.
Thank you.
Would we have to, well, another question for Ms. Lee. Would we have to upkeep the fields more if we enter into our agreement with North Shore County Day? Because that would be another cost for us for more maintenance versus if we never had to do it at other points.
Ms. Lee.
So I'm assuming you're saying which more do we need more maintenance if we pick option 2 or option 3?
Do we have to pay more if we enter into North Shore County Day, just on a maintenance standpoint?
For option 2, it depends on what we use the purpose to rent out the fields for. We don't know what we're going to be doing if we do that independently, but if for North Shore Country Day School, they would probably expect a higher level of maintenance to do.
Ms. Schnitzline, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to, for the North Shore County Day School, I want to go back to their point of the renting hours, but I wanted to ask on the point of them renting more. Would their renting more, would that follow any specific guidelines that we create with anyone else? Like, would we have to create our prices higher to sell to others than North Shore County Day?
I'm not assuming that we would have to create the prices higher, but just if we can settle on an agreement that is more profitable than the one North Shore Country Day School, then we should go with that then.
Ms. Roger, do you have anything to add? Do you have anything to add, Ms. Grossman? All right, the chair will entertain a motion on plans for the future of the Avoca Center property.
I motion to eliminate the option of developing and renting the fields on our own.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. I.
I think that it would be more beneficial to us if we made an agreement than if we were on our own, because then we would have to do the exact same things but pay it on our own.
Ms. Grossman?
I think the financial benefits of entering into an agreement with another school outweigh the factor of us not having full control over the fields.
Line, do you have anything to say?
I think that removing an option from the table of entering into a agreement, well, not entering into an agreement could bring us more cons than pros, because we're not deciding on an option, we're just deciding to remove an option.
Ms. Vandergrift?
To Ms. Schnitzline's point, I think that would kind of put us in between a rock and a hard place, because if there may be another option that hasn't been brought to light yet, and if we eliminate another option from the... Never mind. Sorry for wasting your time.
Oh, no, it's okay. Ms. Grossman, do you have anything to add? All right. Will the secretary call for the roll for the vote?
Of the motion to eliminate the option to develop and rent the fields on our own. Ms. Grossman?
Aye.
Ms. I?
Can you repeat the motion?
Yes. The motion to eliminate the option of developing and renting the fields on our own.
Aye.
Ms. Vandegrift?
Nay.
President Shaw?
Nay.
Ms. Rajwani? Aye. Ms. Patel is absent. Ms. Schnitzline?
Nay.
The motion fails. The chair will entertain yet another motion on plans for the future of the Avoca Center property.
I move to go into an agreement with North Shore Country Day.
I second that motion.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Vander? Ms. Grossman?
I believe that if we are to enter into an option, this one will be the most beneficial to our financial needs for our district. Because we are in debt already, we need to be looking at the benefits of going into an agreement with another school financially, because this could possibly be our highest priority at the moment, our financial situation, and this option could lead to the best gain financially for our school district.
Ms. I?
I agree. And to add on to that, if we leased on our own, there would be almost no safety risk. And if we leased with another school, there would also not really be a safety risk because they would be worried about their own students additionally to ours.
Ms. Rajwani?
I believe that the pros outweigh the cons, and I think it would be much more beneficial to us to enter into the agreement with North Shore Country Day rather than developing the fields on our own.
Ms. Schnitzlein, do you have a...
Yeah, my main concerns about entering into the agreement are, A, the timing that we're losing for the North Shore County Day School, and B, the safety above all for our students is my top priority.
Ms. Grossman?
What timing issues are on the table with North Shore Country Day?
Ms. Schnitzlein?
I really worry about the 2 hours and 15 minutes out of our day, which will get very short of a time, especially during like the end of fall, the beginning of spring, when there's not very many hours of the day, when there's more night. I'd worry that some of that 2 hours and 15 minutes will be prohibiting onto our students either during school or their after-school sports. And if they want any more time to use our fields, that price could be really low if our economy swings for the government, for our selling rate at $100 that's set for 16 years.
Ms. I?
Well, currently we have our own fields, which we use, and the Avoca Center isn't necessarily used for anything, so if we turned it into a field and rented it out, then we would be getting money, and it also wouldn't necessarily disrupt our students from their activities.
Ms. Rajwani?
I would like to, address for the benefit of everyone present. Can North Shore Country Day use these athletic fields during our school day from the period of 8:55 to 3:20? Can this school use our fields? And if they can, what portion of it? Will it just be the athletic fields, or will it be all of it?
Ms. I?
I just have a question. If we went into a leasing agreement, could they use our already portion of the fields that we already have, or just the ones that we build together?
Ms. Lee.
Well, they could, of course, use the fields that they built themselves, but in the space that we agreed on for them to rent, they could use that as well. But I'm not sure if there probably would be a space that only Marie Murphy could use. They could not be able to use that. But the details are still to be sorted out.
Ms. Grossman?
To answer Mr. Rajwani's question, I do not believe that North Shore Country Day would be able to use the fields during the school day from 7:55 till 3:20.
Ms. Rajwani, do you have anything to say?
Two things. I said 8:55 instead of 7:55, which was a mistake on my part. The school day does start at 7:55, which I should know. The second part of my thing was going to be that never mind.
Okay, Ms. Vandergrift?
Something I would like to point out for the benefit of everyone here is they are asking to lease during the fall and spring seasons, and 2 hours and 15 minutes, I believe is the time, takes a good amount of time out of time that our students would be allowed to use the playing field. And spring and fall are the only times during the school year, those seasons, that you can really play sports, that we have sports going on. So those are the main sports seasons, so it'd be more difficult for our students to play after-school activities on those fields.
Ms. Rajwani?
There are, I guess you could put it like this, there's a bit of a boundary on the field where we run our mile till, I believe, like the mile run, that portion of that, I believe, is ours. So I think there's a boundary line somewhere near the halfway through. But even then, there's still a portion of the fields that is our own, that we can always figure out, and the fields, all of it, is technically our property, so we can figure out, we can solve all of those scheduling concerns if we get into the agreement in much finer detail, but I don't think there will be many scheduling concerns.
Miss Lee, would you like to confirm what portion of that backfield is ours? Do you know?
The lease agreement has no information on that.
All right. Ms. Vandergrift?
I would like to point out that when the students run their mile, they tend to use the entirety of the field to run their mile. They do not just use simply half of the field, so that is one of my concerns.
Miss I?
I just wanted to say that throughout most of the year, kids in our school, we spend roughly 3 hours or 4 hours with gym class. And outside we have our own little place where we stay. And I think the mile run, kids are running the mile run, which shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. I think that the field, they would simply move off of the field for us to do it, and it wouldn't take the whole day.
And also, generally, kids are running the mile during the school day, and during this time, North Shore Country Day will not be at our school, so I don't believe that is our biggest issue there, because during the school day, our recreational use for the fields from our school and our gym classes should not be impeached on.
Ms. Vandergrift?
Never mind, sorry.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion on plans for the future of the Avoca Center property.
I move to enter into agreement with North Shore Country Day School.
I second that motion.
Will the secretary please call the roll for the vote?
On the motion of entering into agreement with North Shore Country Day School for construction and rental of athletic fields, Ms. Grossman?
Aye.
Miss I?
Aye.
Ms. Vandergrift?
Nay.
President Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Rajwani? Aye.
Ms. Schnitzline.
Aye.
Okay.
The motion carries.
The motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting of the Avoca Board of Education is adjourned.